Your AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety welcomes you to Night Driving. We'll look at some important issues like, how does darkness limit your safety vision? What is the biggest hazard in night driving? What can you do to keep your car safe for driving in the dark? And can you drive the same way at night as you do in the daytime? The answers to all of this and more in Night Driving.
Hello and welcome to Driving Safety. I'm Patrice King-Brown.
And I'm John Burnett. You may have seen some of the new technologies that can help people see more effectively in the dark. Things like night vision goggles for the U.S. military.
But for now, driving at night depends on your ability to respond safely to three things.
What you can see in the light from your car's headlights.
What you can determine from the headlights and taillights of other cars.
And the visual cues you can pick up from road signs and markers.
How does darkness limit your safety vision? Let's see what researchers who study driving have discovered about seeing at night.
First, low light reduces our depth perception. At night, all we can see of these two cars are two sets of taillights. Which one is closer is a tough call, but in daylight, it's obvious.
The other important thing that changes dramatically at night is contrast. During the day, anyone could tell these two cars apart. But at dusk, all you can see is a row of lights.
So darkness limits your safety vision by limiting both your depth perception and the contrast of the driving scene.
Right. And in driving in the dark, we depend on our headlights, which only light a limited distance straight ahead of the car. Just 150 feet for the low beams and 350 to 500 feet for the high beams. While in daylight, you can see if the road is curving in front of you. At night, if the road curves out of the path of your lights, you can't see it at all. You don't know where the road is going.
The cues we receive from signs are even more important at night. For example, the safety signs around construction sites or the signs that reveal sharp curves in the road.
The first modification we have to make in driving at night is slow down. Don't overdrive your headlights.
That means that you've got 4 seconds to react to something and stop the car. You should also increase your following distance to at least 3 seconds.
Headlights don't light up over a hill or around a curve, so we have to keep alert for dark movements and shadowy objects. And in the dark, we see unexpected objects only half as well as familiar ones. So alertness is crucial to safe driving in darkness.
Now, when starting out in a lighted area, a common mistake is to forget to turn on your lights. This is very dangerous because as you pull out into traffic, your car is almost invisible to other drivers. New ideas about making cars visible to other drivers are being proposed all the time. For instance, in Canada, all new cars are now required to have daytime running lights.
When should you drive with your headlights on?
You should have your lights on from the very beginning of dusk until sunrise. And during daytime when you're driving on a flat, boring highway. And when you feel that it's important to alert other drivers to the presence of your vehicle. And also, of course, in the rain or other inclement weather.
And never drive with just your parking lights on. They don't provide enough light for driving, and they don't provide enough light for other drivers to see a moving vehicle either.
How do you decide when to use your high beams and when to use your low beams?
So you should use your high beams only when driving in the country and when there are no other cars in sight. When you're driving in the city, you should use your low beams at all times. You should dim your lights as soon as you see the headlights of oncoming traffic, or as soon as you see the taillights of a car in front of you, certainly if they're within 500 feet. And in heavy traffic or when you see a pedestrian or an animal on a country road.
That's right, Patrice. The glare of high beams can actually blind and confuse and cause them to move into your path.
What's the biggest hazard in night driving?
Well, the answer, of course, is glare. Both the blinding glare from the headlights of cars coming toward you and the glare of your own lights in the eyes of oncoming drivers. Now, what are some of the things that we can do to minimize the hazards of glare?
Well, one thing is to stay in the farthest lane away from oncoming traffic and focus your attention away from those lights, toward the right edge of the road.
Look beyond oncoming vehicles and avoid looking right at the glare from their headlights.
You know, it takes at least 7 seconds for your eyes to readjust after passing the headlights of an oncoming vehicle.
And it takes more than a minute for your eyes to return to normal if you're blinded by a set of high beams.
And that's why it's important not to fight back by flashing your high beams at oncoming vehicles who leave theirs on.
Now, because glare is such a hazard, through the years, car manufacturers have come up with some weapons to help you fight it. Changing the rearview mirror to the night position reduces glare from the headlights of cars behind you.
You should also lower the brightness of your instrument panel lights and keep interior lights off. Lights inside the car make it very difficult to see what's happening outside.
Since glare is the most common hazard of night driving, you might be tempted to slip on a pair of shades. After all, they are made to reduce glare, right?
Wrong. That's right. Sunglasses don't function the same way in the dark as they do in bright sunlight. They just make everything so dark that you become more of a hazard than glare ever was. Bad weather just makes darkness and the glare that comes with it even worse. A coating of water on the windshield blurs images. Objects outside the car become distorted and hard to recognize. The white lines seem to disappear. That's why we're seeing more reflection markers to guide your path.
And in bad weather, the drivers coming toward you can't see very well either.
Which raises another question. What are the most important things you can do to keep your car safe for night driving?
And for the answer, let's go now to our special correspondent on automotive safety, Fred Fix-It.
Well, John and Patrice, there are 5 things I always recommend for keeping a car safe for driving at night and in bad weather. First, these are the headlights. They have to be clean to work properly. Dirt diffuses the light they produce, and just a thin layer of road grime can cut their effectiveness in half. So, keep them clean. Second, make sure all the other lights on your car are functioning properly. Third, the windshield. Dirt or dust on the outside or the inside of your windshield can increase the bad effects of glare, cut visibility, and leave you in a real mess after dark. Again, keep the windows clean or you're asking for trouble. Fourth, in bad weather, your windshield wipers are your best friends. Make sure your wiper blades have good live rubber and that the arms hold them tightly against the glass. And finally, the windshield washer system. Clearing your windshield of road scum that gets kicked up during a storm by other traffic is extremely important. So make sure your washer system is full of fluid and that the jets that spray your windshield are clean. If you're not mechanically inclined, get a mechanic to check them out. Those are my safe driving at night recommendations, Patrice and John. Back to you.
Thanks, Fred. Well, we seem to have answered all of our questions but one.
Right, the easy one. Can you drive the same way at night as you do during the day?
And I guess the answer is pretty obvious.
Sure, of course you can't. No, you can't.
What? Well, wait a minute, though. I drive safely during the day. Why shouldn't I drive safely at night?
Right, Professor. But to drive safely at night, we must modify our driving to allow a greater margin of safety for every driving maneuver that we make.
Of course. All right, let's recap then.
We've learned we have to drive slower and dim our lights for oncoming cars, as well as for cars ahead of us.
We have to focus our attention on the right edge of the road to avoid glare. And we need to constantly look for dark movements and shadowy objects, especially unexpected ones.
We need to make sure our windshields and windows are clean and that our lights and windshield wipers and washers are in good repair.
And never forget, alcohol use, the #1 factor in fatal automobile accidents, is much more common at night. Be alert to the fact that drivers sharing the road with you at night are far more likely to be intoxicated than during the day. So drive defensively.
You know, someday, when night vision technology is incorporated into our cars, driving at night might not be such a challenge.
But for now, doing the things we've learned about in this installment of Driving Safety is your best bet to increase your chances of avoiding accidents and other problems every time you drive at night. Thanks for joining us, everybody.